Earthlings, and hello,
Hello.
Asaf. I'm not considering you an Earth.
An issue here on
Okay,
YouTube. We have an issue on YouTube.
okay, what's going on?
Um, let's see. Let me see. Um, we are live on Facebook, so that's okay. Are we good now on YouTube? Tell us, friends. Tell
I
us.
think
I think we're
I
good
think we
now.
are on YouTube. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I see
Okay.
Yets. Okay, now I'm open it up. I see Yets here. So we heard
Okay.
everything from the beginning. We didn't. Okay,
Yeah.
let's
Just
let's
restart it. Yeah.
okay. Hello, everybody. So we know we see Chris is not here. Let's all send our best wishes to Chris. He's got to deal with something today and can't be with us. So Chris, we're thinking about you. Um, there's an expression that when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I don't know if that's from Karate Kid or if that's some ancient expression. Sounds really good. Um, when does a person come to the wisdom of Kabbalah? Um, a person goes through their life, and at a certain point, it happens to everyone. Although for most people, it's pretty buried and it stays pretty buried. But a person gets to a point where they feel very, very frustrated with what life has to offer, and they can't seem to be fulfilled. Most of us are able to calm that down. We can get some kind of fulfillment, at least enough to get us through the day, and we'll try again tomorrow. Or we have some goal that we put on the horizon about a promotion or about a new house or about something that will at least get us, through the suffering. But there comes a time for some people where nothing seems to work. And I mean, no, it's true. Your body's a biological body, and there's things you can do to the biological body to calm it down. I mean, you could knock it out and then he just falls asleep and then he doesn't have any desires. So that's not a problem. You can do that. And we also have drugs that can calm us down as well. But in a normal state of consciousness, uh, we come to these states where we can't get out. And there's a lot of options out there. What's unique about the wisdom of Kabbalah, and w specifically, we have a big problem that we need to deal with. That's the title of our show here. It seems like the whole world is preparing for war, is running towards war. But but what? I mean, that's what we're doing now. That's really what we're going to get into
Mm-hmm.
that. Like, what about the alternative, and how can it be after all this time that this is what's going on? So when a person, there's many paths that a person can choose. And there's many paths from all over the world. You got religions, you got all sorts of spiritual paths. You can do astral projection. You can raise the kundalini through your chakras. You can do certain kind of mantra work. I'm not even talking about specifically just physical things like cold plunges and all these other really cool things that give you different feelings and things like that. I'm talking something that we would categorize as spiritual. In the wisdom of Kabbalah, well, you have to be able to experience a change in your senses. That's specifically, that's how you would categorize what the wisdom of Kabbalah is dealing with. You need a systematic way, a clear systematic way where you can test on yourself what you're going through. You can experiment on yourself, and your senses need to change. This is what uh, this is how you would categorize what's going on in the wisdom of Kabbalah. So versus many other practices, if you end up in a system that has been that a method that's been repeated for thousands of years, and those who engage in it are transforming themselves, transforming their senses, and perceiving a new reality. So that's what we're talking about.
Also, in an interesting way, if you inspired me to just
Okay.
add to it just one uh, aspect to that, that the um, the kind of expanding we're talking about a deeper understanding, feeling, perception of this, of everything that's already happening. And I think
In
that's
fact,
that's an
in
important
fact, this
thing. Yeah.
reality, if you're playing a guitar, you have this box, an acoustic guitar, for example, you have this box where the sound resonates, and you have these metal strings that are strung. That device there produces an effect. Specifically, this reality that we're in versus going on an ayahuasca trip or versus doing something where you release yourself from this reality. What the wisdom of Kabbalah is taking you into is just the way the guitar, that wood and those strings are the mechanism by which you produce this
Yeah.
sound.
Yeah.
This reality and the 4 degrees of this reality, meaning still, vegetative, animate, and the speaking degrees, this reality is the reality through which you produce
Hmm.
the conditions
Yeah.
that resonates you to this change of it's against, when you strike the metal string, there's resistance, there's friction, there's vibration, and then it produces the sound, and then there's another mechanism which sends it out. So specifically by striking, if you will, this reality in a certain way, interacting with this reality in a certain way, you produce a change in yourself. So the reality is specifically structured in a way for us to interface with it as if it's an instrument.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me give it
So,
another, just to emotionally, emotionally speaking, that
hold on a sec.
vibration.
I got
Yeah.
you got a buffering. You froze again.
No,
Message
no, I
over
think
here.
now it's fine. It was another
Okay.
small
Okay.
hitch, but
Okay.
yeah, friends, tell us that we're fine. I'm From what I'm seeing, we should be fine now. But
Okay.
there was a little bit of a hiccup, but
Okay.
validate that for us, friends. Thank you. Um, yeah, I was just about to say that emotionally speaking, that vibration, it's like is like this whole picture of everything that's happened to you in life, in society, in the world at large. All of a sudden, it all becomes one thing, and it's infused with purpose. It's infused with purpose, with guidance, with meaning, with a direction. You begin to see, get a glimpse into the force, the forces guiding and shaping this reality that we think of as the ultimate reality, but it's just really a picture being shaped by deeper timeless forces.
The question.
Yeah.
So then we have a question that's bothering me, and I hope it's bothering everyone. Why, if this
Yeah.
is the potential of humanity, why do we find ourselves at a time when it seems like we're running towards a cliff?
Hmm.
What is that cliff? That cliff is just more war, more destruction, more suffering. This week,
Are you
uh,
showing something? I'm not seeing
I'm
if
going to
you're.
right now. Hold on.
Okay.
Okay. This was from January 18th.
No, I
This is
can't see
from Fred.
anything.
You don't see it?
I mean, there's a weird bug, like a stripe thing. I think you need to maybe choose a different,
Hold on. Here we go. How about
maybe.
this one?
Yeah, okay.
Uh, okay. This was from January
Sweden's
18th.
Sweden's
Sweden's
call. Yeah.
Sweden, Sweden's call for the population to prepare for war sparks panic and criticism. This is not
Right.
Ukraine. This is not
Sweden.
Israel.
Sweden. They didn't have
Yeah.
any violent conflict for like over 2 centuries.
The,
Yeah.
the upper echelon of Sweden's government and defense force last week shocked the nations by explicitly warning that war may come to Sweden and that each and every Swede should prepare themselves.
Yeah.
Swedes series, they flock to the stores to stock up on fuel, survival kits. Okay. Here's another story from
I
uh
just want to say that,
here.
this I don't know if it comes as how shocking it is for people hearing about this, but just think about it, that it's a marker. it's a certain indication because there was no such warning or such attitude in Sweden for the last I think 200 years or more. So that just shows you kind of like the gravity of what's happening behind the scenes, where things are going. Anyway,
Okay, now you
yeah.
also have this is NATO. NATO's this is Rob Bauer, NATO's military commander. Maybe people saw this
Hmm.
also for the next day, January 19th, last week. NATO has warned that the West should step up preparations for the unexpected, including a war with Russia, as Moscow's full-scale invasion of Ukraine is nearing a 2-year mark and worries over possible. Okay, so we have to realize it's not a given that we are at peace, and that's why
Hmm.
we, the NATO forces, are preparing for a conflict with Russia,
Just to
says the
make
Dutch
sure that
admiral.
everyone, maybe not everyone is, even knows what NATO is. Is there such a chance? Maybe anyway, people should people know
Look it
what
up.
what, what NATO is.
It's a problem.
It's an alliance basically of it's an intergovernmental organization that is an alliance. I guess with all of the actually North Atlantic Treaty something is the treaty organization. That's the anyway. So this is an alliance between many countries on the west, and essentially it's like a joint army that is now doing a drill.
Spain, Italy, Germany, France,
Right.
Canada.
And now they're doing the biggest
These
drill they've done since like half a century or something like that, with about 100,000 soldiers. That's huge. Just think about the economics behind it and the logistics behind it, and what does that mean? Why would they do that? Um, anyway, yeah. So these are big things.
okay.
Yeah.
Here's from a New York newspaper.
Okay.
From also last week.
I didn't see this
Germany is
one.
preparing Germany preparing for Russia to start World War III, leaked
Hmm.
war plan reveals. Now, everyone, we understand this is warmongering
Of
media.
course.
We're
Of
not taking
course.
everything, but this is what people are talking about. Europe is preparing for Russian President Vladimir Putin to expand his country's war. Um,
Here's another one.
classified,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay,
What were you
let me do
saying?
one more. The situation in Israel, just because it strikes close to home, that we're saying, okay, well, where's the peace? Is it possible we can make peace? But Hamas says we will repeat October 7th again and again. Last week, Hamas stormed out of an interview with the BBC after he was asked about the terrorist group's massacre on Jesus, excuse my language.
Oh man.
Uh, yeah. So we will repeat again and again. Did you want to show more examples of?
I saw this one. Can you see the yeah? This one. Wait, let me show it in full. Yeah,
Yeah, I see.
this one. UK Defense Minister said the era of the peace dividend is over. Meaning, I mean, when you see these officials, these world leaders, or people in public, elected officials, they saying these things. Now, what does that mean? Of course, a lot of it is politics, and who has to say what to whatever to look a certain way. But this is the vibe. If you just think about all of the world's armies and countries and leaders and nations as like being in like a the same neighborhood, because like their global politics is like a neighborhood. There's a certain vibe, and at the moment the vibe in the neighborhood is peace is over. We're entering some period of violence, of conflict, that might be violent conflict.
No,
um,
when
yeah.
you have people who are make when you have also we have big tech companies now. Those big tech companies, you don't become billionaires, multi-billionaires by accident. You have to understand if I'm going to set up factories, I need to know where it's going to be stable. If I'm going to set up distribution around the world. I need to know, is it a good time to do that? The same way, if you're going to, for example, go on vacation with your family and you're going to spend $5,000, $3,000 for a once in a lifetime, I don't know, some kind of special thing, you need to be really sure that everything's going to work out and I can actually get off time from work and that that grandma's going to be able to make it. I'm bringing the whole family for a reunion and it's a big deal.
Yeah.
If you're going to invest billions, billions and billions, you need to make sure all these things are in place. So people who are billionaires and run these big country companies, they know things. They talk to people. They understand what's going on socially, globally, and politically. So then
Yeah,
when
they're
we
they're
see
they're
now,
closer to decision making circles and
right.
you know.
So when we see these guys who are
What is
running
this?
these
Can you blow it
companies,
up a little bit just to see the title? I didn't see this one.
super rich
The super
tech
rich
billionaires
preppers.
planning,
Ah,
yeah,
okay.
are planning to save themselves from the apocalypse. So tech billionaires are buying up luxurious bunkers and hiring military security in order to survive a societal collapse. Okay,
Hmm.
so
So you're
they're
saying basically
building.
they're not spending their billions on this just because they can. There's also a certain kind of indication for them that it's worthwhile doing, basically.
Yes. So they
Hmm.
also, but so they have a question. Uh, how are they going to pay their guards
Mm.
once their money doesn't have value? And not only
Oh
that,
boy,
if they're going to have to lock up their food, what if the Navy SEALs that they hired to protect them want the
turn
food?
on them.
And
Yeah.
how are they going to
Hmm.
make, they have all these different problems. How are they going to maintain control over over their military once
Mm.
the nuclear Holocaust takes place? So
Oh boy.
it's what I really want to bring everyone to a feeling of despair for a minute here. Um, Tongue in cheek, I'm saying that,
Thank you, Seth.
but you have
I'm
all
sure
of
our
the
audience is happy to go
no.
into
Listen.
despair with you.
We have a reason why we want to enter this feeling for a minute, but it's really important to notice and to see what this kind of life has to offer us, and to stop for a second and say, I'm not satisfied with what that life has to offer me. I see what the politicians are saying. They're all posturing for war. I see what all these smart billionaires who I ogle over and I think they're so great and I buy all their products and I just use all of their social media and I do everything. My life is revolved around what they're look what they're doing. They're just looking to leave us all behind and go hide underground and wait it out
Hmm.
while everyone else's face melts off in World War III, literally.
Oh
The,
man.
is 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 this is war inevitable? Is that it? Is that it?
Well,
We're just gonna run towards this war and the billionaires are gonna hide
y-
in the bunkers and everyone's gonna fight it out. Thank
well,
God we'll have our can of tuna fish, to survive an extra 24 hours. But
you you
is
you
this
you talked about the despairing nature of seeing what's happening. I want to also bring up the paradoxical nature of what is happening. This is so weird when you look at all of the accomplishments of humanity, when you look at where we are technologically, medically, scientifically, culturally. We are such a highly evolved, super hyper connected, internet
this is
based
what makes it so hard
civilization.
to
That's what I'm saying.
comprehend.
And still we're
But
about
we
to kill each
accept
other.
this
It's
as, yeah, we accept it as it's just a foregone. Let me ask you this.
Mhm.
I'm not going to share more screens because I don't want to get in. Maybe I should. Well, one more.
Okay.
Well, let's just bring it up for a second.
Okay.
Who are the voices for peace? Tell me, does anybody in this audience, can you name one person
Wait,
on this planet?
and let me increase the challenge. One person, name a person or a movement on this planet who's actually calling for peace, not just for their movement or for their kind or for their I don't know, those who support their view or their sexual preferences or their color or their someone who's actually talking about, hey, world, let's try to figure this out together. Can we just maybe 1 minute before we start killing each other, can we try another way? Show us
So,
show us these
and
guys.
if
Where are these
you're gonna
guys?
say that the freed political prisoner, I think she's freed now, Aung San Suu Kyi from Burma, is the one. So okay, great. And in this one, this Nigerian marathon runner who's
Hmm.
always shouting for peace. Okay, fine. Yeah, there's a couple people that we could point out, and but guys, what we're trying to say is, where is this voice in society at large? Not some person who's obscure that almost nobody has ever heard of, but why? When anything can be spread on social media in a moment,
Hmm.
when some trend comes, I don't know what trend came out now, but remember Gangnam Style? Like the whole entire world knew what Gangnam Style was in like a week,
Oh
right?
man.
Like, where is the voice for some
That
other
this is really
alternative for some?
this is really inciting to me what you're saying. I mean, it's really it activates me because that just kills me. I mean, the fact that we have the means to completely change the vibe. That's what I'm trying to why I called it a vibe earlier. Like, I mean, there's definitely the means for it today if we wanted like this is humanity's stupidity. This is like our how dumb we are. Like we're thinking about these technological advancements and going to Mars even, and and doing all kinds of and AI now, let's do that, improve our lives, and in the meantime we can't solve the problems that are going to destroy everything that we think of as good. And really what we need to do is just use the platform of global communication that we have today to just shift the vibe everywhere. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying, but it's totally possible. And
Well,
yeah.
herein lies kind of the kernel of our problem, Asaf. We have a concept in the wisdom of Kabbalah called "there's no light without a kli." It means, in essence, that all of reality is permeated by light, white light. And the light doesn't say, that guy over there, I'm going to give him a little more, and her, I'm going to give it a little less. And this guy over here, he was great last week. I'm going to shine for him more. And that guy didn't like how he behaved. I'm going to shine for him less. The light is extending to everyone in all directions completely equally. So, what determines how that light is received? Only the vessel. That's it. If you think about anything in your life like that, someone's dropping, I don't know, millions of dollars from the sky, just cash, but the condition is you have to be only what you can hold on to, you can
Hmm.
keep. So if you don't have enough pockets, so it doesn't matter how many billions are falling out of the sky, you can only keep what you can hold. There's a concept in the wisdom of Kabbalah. There's no light without a vessel, meaning there's no problem with the light. The light is endless, but only according to what we can hold. So how do we translate into our conversation here? It's impossible to receive anything unless there is a need
Yeah.
for that thing.
Yeah.
And where is the need for
Well,
peace?
the need can come from horrible wars and suffering. When that
Do
happens,
animals
people need
do
peace.
animals desire peace? No.
Hmm.
Does anyone desire peace? Who is the only creature who can even desire peace?
I would say we don't even know, at by and large, we don't, as human beings, I don't think we even know what it means to desire peace. We want we no one wants conflict, but peace is more than the absence of conflict. Um, Peace is like is a completely different level of consciousness that we need to achieve in order to also have sustainable
So,
peace in our
so
world.
the
Yeah.
Kabbalist talks about another type of creature because to desire peace, an animal doesn't desire peace.
Hmm.
And the Kabbalist would look around and see all of the nice people wearing clothes and driving to work and going to the coffee shop. And the Kabbalist wouldn't call all of those people on the degree of an Adam, of a spiritual creature. He would call them on the degree of a really nice looking, well-dressed coffee shop going beast, animal. So the Kabbalist talks about another kind of creature that some spiritual soul comes and dwells inside of the body. Not that it actually lives inside the body, meaning like my soul is somewhere inside my flesh, but with this device, I can begin to perceive this other, I can become this other kind of creature who actually desires something eternal, something fulfilling, something full of goodness, something full of love. So my question to you is, Asaf, why are we why is everybody that why are all the politicians, why is everyone just why is everything about war, 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 war?
Yeah.
What is it that we're stuck on this in this reality where
Hmm.
everything is conflict, everything is war?
Yeah.
Where are we in that? What is this?
Yeah. The you said now I'm afraid that I'll be more despairing than you. That's the we're doing a it's like we're in a contest today of who's gonna bring more despair to the table. But this all of this reality is war. Everything we see here is war. It's there the essence of the physical reality is essentially war. Why? Because I mean, ultimately, to just say it in a nutshell, there's two opposite qualities that are non-material qualities, governing qualities that are the integration between them and the interplay between them appears in our reality as war. And it's everywhere. Ultimately, it comes from two opposite forces, Bina and Malchut in the Kabbalistic language, a quality of reception and a quality of bestowal. But ultimately, you see it everywhere. If you go to the most primitive levels of nature, the still of the tiniest subatomic spaces of reality, you'll see that inside the atom there's constant tension between plus and minus, and that tension, that constant tension, ultimately is what enables, on greater scales, electricity or electromagnetism, or there's a constant tension between opposite forces that runs through all of reality, creating the next level of life, creating evolution, driving forward everything that's going on through the still to the vegetative level, the animate level, the human level. And in how it appears in human society, we call it war. But ultimately, it's actually the same dynamic running through all of nature, all of reality. And so that is just where we are. And so when we're talking about peace, that's why I said I don't think we even understand what peace is. Because peace is not just to have no tension. No, peace is when opposite pieces that have tension and differences and conflict between them find a configuration, let's say, that allows them to work as one, and then you have harmony on top of the dissonance. You have wholeness on top of differences. You have perfection on top of all
So
of
so
the conflicting
if I'm
contradictions. Yeah.
if I'm touring the Amazon and I with my suburban GI tract and stomach, I drink some, I don't know, I eat a fish right out. I want to be like the locals and I grab a fish and I eat them to try and show off, right? Drink
Uh-huh.
something out of it and I get giardia.
Right.
I get some, right? And so I'm now I'd spend the next 2 weeks like deathly ill, like shivering on the side of the river there, sweating, shaking,
Oh,
covered in whatever, right?
mm,
So what you're saying then is there's a full-on war going on inside of me. It's just you don't have CNN and BBC and Al Jazeera in there
right, right.
spinning it around. There's a
Yeah,
full-on war on the biological level taking place
yeah.
inside of me.
Yes, and essentially inside your body, things are reorganizing. Things are developing. The dynamic between different components and systems in your body are trying to find a new state of equilibrium. And so this dynamic equilibrium that we see in nature, by the way, and also we see it also on the level of the entire planet Earth and ecosystems and planets and galaxies, even. So everywhere in nature, everywhere in the universe, we are part of this constant interplay between opposites that is gradually finding and creating next levels of life, next levels of evolution.
Okay,
But
so suppose I'm not trying to be a show off and eat the fish right out of the Amazon, but instead I found I'm not interested in me being there in surviving in the Amazon alongside the people who've been doing it for 1,000 years. Instead, I'm interested in the health of all of humanity and of the whole universe. And I found some secret books that describe these sublime states that will be, say, in 10,000 years after humanity's already balanced all of these things. And
okay.
yeah,
I want to say you're describing kind of where we're going, and that's a major point that we're kind of hidden in our discussion. We're actually, all of us, I mean, our title is Everyone Preparing for War, Who's Preparing for Peace, right? But everyone is preparing for peace. That's basically in a very
you're so naive.
controversial way. Okay, you call it naive, but we are preparing for peace.
I
But
would say
just
no, I would say almost nobody's preparing for peace. So you're
you're
going to need to explain yourself.
okay.
You're
So
saying you're saying completely unconsciously
yes,
and through being beaten to
through
hell
killing each other,
from
we are actually preparing for a higher level of peace. Now, I'm not saying that's how it has to be, but I'm saying that ultimately, what are we trying to do? We are creatures that want to feel good. That's how we're designed. We're designed by nature as we want to be in a state of balance, rest, fulfillment, good. We call it in human language, we want to be happy. Who doesn't want to be happy, right? Now, also as societies and as a global society, we're also trying to get to a point where, where we're comfortable. But how we're doing it right now is not by trying to make it comfortable for everyone and get to that point where there's global convenience and global peace and so on. We're trying to, each society, each country, each leader, etc., trying to make itself comfortable. So ultimately, everyone is moving towards the state where it's good for everyone. We're moving towards peace, but we're not doing it consciously. We don't actually know. We're like pieces in a single system, and we haven't recognized that we're part of a single system. We haven't internalized it. As time progresses, as technology advances, we gradually get to feel more that we're interdependent across the entire globe. We know everything that's happening across the entire globe. We begin to see the connections between what's happening in one side of the world and the other. The climate destabilization is also beginning to kind of close us in, and we're beginning to gradually feel that we're locked as a single system, and we're actually looking unconsciously looking for a peaceful, balanced state for the entire system. But we're doing it unconsciously. We don't know what we're actually doing. And it appears at the moment as just fighting each other and killing each other, which is horrible. but
when a
but
when a
it's
fisherman
it's a
when,
preparation.
when a fisher
It's
when a fisherman
evolution.
sends
Yeah. Hmm.
when a fisherman throws his worm out, right? The fish, if he was smart enough, would say like, yes, that is a juicy worm, and yes, I'd love to eat that worm. And yes, I'm gonna feel pleasure when that worm touches my mouth.
Hmm.
But then I'm gonna be stuck on a hook. And then I'm going to be pulled out of the water and I won't be able to breathe after a few minutes. And then they're going to chop off my head and scale me and fillet me and cook me. So it seems to me
Hmm.
that when I see how our contemporaries eat every day, the kind of crap that we feed ourselves every day, and when I see the lifestyles that we lead every day, and when I see the kind of leaders that we elect every day, it's as if we're just biting the worm and not
Mm.
seeing more. And yet
Yeah.
you're calling it, in my joking, I called it naive. You're calling it, well, anyway, we're really moving towards peace because eventually, after being hooked 10,000 times by the fishermen, we'll eventually get the idea that there could be a better way. And so, therefore, even though for 10,000 times I'm going to get hooked, eventually we'll figure it out.
Right.
And therefore, I'm going to call going to World War III now. I'm a soph, and I'm going to say going to World War III is actually moving towards peace.
In a very unconscious way. No, you're right. You're right. Absolutely. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. This is you're right. I totally see what you're saying. But the our perspective. This is something we have to get used to. We have to understand. Our perspective is very narrow, limited, and short-sighted. You know, there's I recently watched listened to a podcast, an interview with one of the analysts that analyzes the situation in the world right now. He's actually a futurist, and I was interested in what he has to say because he met with our
A
teacher,
futurist?
a futurist. I'll also explain what that
Isn't that
means.
what we
He's
are? Are we
nah, and
futurists?
he's a Professor David Pasig, and anyway, it was interesting to me to listen to because he 15 years ago we invited him to a conversation with Kabbalist Dr. Michael Leitman, our teacher, and they had good chemistry. They spoke for about an hour, and it was an interesting conversation. And there's actually an interesting chemistry, and I can see why. Because first of all, what is futurism? What is that? He's a professor. This is like a serious thing. It's not fortune telling at all. Futurism essentially means it's a branch of systems science because systems science is basically the study of systems and how everything's a system. You know, your body is a system, a society is a system, all of humanity is a system. Ecosystems are systems, right? So if you study the logic of a system and you understand the forces that are shaping it, you can somewhat predict where it's going to develop. That essentially, in a nutshell, is what this field of research of futurism is. It's not like they have accurate predictions, but some 60%, 70%, they
You
have
know,
they
we talked
validate
about
them. Yeah.
well, we talked about Ray Dalio before. He manages the biggest hedge fund in the world, Bridgewater. He hired, he's got to manage people's money through all different kind of economic conditions. So he
Mm.
put together a huge team, and they go through what he calls the short cycle, which is, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. And then the large cycle, there's a certain number of short cycles that make up the large cycle, and it's all predictable. It sounds exactly like what you're talking about. If you look at a big enough set of data, everything is just who
Uh,
said history isn't repeating, it's rhyming, but it's all like
mm.
the same cycles happening over and
Exactly.
over again.
Exactly. So the what basically when we look, our perspective is very limited to. It's like what am I gonna eat tonight? You know, this is kind of
The worm right now.
the worm. Exactly. Or to your point, it's what I'm gonna have. What's gonna happen right now, tomorrow, in a week. in 7 years I'm gonna study medicine and get my MD label in 7 years. That's how far we look. But if you analyze thousands of years of history, you start seeing uh, uh, you start seeing vectors. You start seeing forces. Reality begins to look more like big, trends rather than limited, time-dependent and locale-dependent events. You begin to see movements. And so Kabbalist Michael Leitman, our teacher, and this futurist, they had an interesting chemistry, I think, because also our teacher's initial profession, he started out as a scientist before he found Kabbalah, and his profession is actually biocybernetics, which is system science applied to the human body. And futurism is actually a branch of system science as well. So there was some kind of an interesting chemistry there. Anyway, so he calls these, when you look at long processes, then they call it in that field vectors. It's interesting because in Kabbalah we call it forces, right? But one of the very interesting thing he says is that if you analyze the last 5,000 years of war on this planet, you actually see that there is an east-west pendulum, that basically the west conquers the east, and then the east conquers the west, and then the west conquers the east, and then the east conquers the west. And this thing is going on. This pendulum just keeps swinging for 5,000 years already, and now we're at a point where there's another swing, but there's very interesting research on also where the middle is. But okay, I don't know if we want to go
When you
into that
speak
now.
about the middle, by the way, it's the whole thing. So we're talking about system science. What did you call it?
System science, yeah.
System science. It sounds to me like the wisdom of Kabbalah, except the wisdom of Kabbalah is not looking at hundreds or thousands of years. The wisdom of, I mean, when I said to you before, Saf,
Yes.
why is there always war? You went back to before the Big Bang, or and explained, well, you have this system which includes a force called Malchut and a force called Bina, which precedes material reality. So the Kabbalist is looking at systems that are timeless systems, and
The craziest
right?
thing is when we have conversations like with our teacher, then, and you see this in the writings of the Kabbalists. To them, from a Kabbalistic perspective, it's from the Big Bang to now. It's very easy to speak that way. The reality always, because all of this material reality, which let's say in our understanding, in our perception, begins from this material inflation, this what we call the Big Bang, till the end of this material reality. Yes, there's an end to it. All of it is essentially a limited a limited a limited blip in all of reality. Reality is actually much bigger than the world that we live in. And so, yeah, so this futurist is looking at 5,000 years. Kabbalists are easily looking at 14 billion, which is, the existence of the
I
entire
mean,
universe.
at first glance, they're looking at something that's
And
even
that's just at a
beyond time.
first glance.
But if
Exactly.
but that whole structure, you want to just for a moment, you look at even just how our life is imprinted. You take our week. This is interesting. Take our
Mm-hmm.
7 day work week. So you take Zeron pin, which is six, right? And then you have this extra thing, this extra seventh day. So the 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 Christians put the seventh day, let's say the East. I'm sorry, the West puts it on Sunday, and the East puts it on Friday. And then you have that Israel thing who puts it on Saturday in the middle. So
Yeah,
even
there's
between the whole structure of the way everything is imprinted, even before our eyes, when you said that this futurist talks about this move between the West and the East,
mhm.
we even see that the way they organize their holy day, it's also like this one wants to be on that side of it, and this one
Yeah.
puts it on the other side, and the other one's in the middle. Though, if you start to look, ladies and gentlemen, at reality, not through the lens of BBC, Al Jazeera, and CNN or something like that, but you start to engage in the texts of the Kabbalists, you start to overlay on top of
The
this reality,
the
not
the the
escaping it, but you start
pattern,
to
yeah.
overlay
Hmm.
the patterns.
The patterns, yeah.
We still
And
didn't get to
and
why the hell there's still
okay,
war all
I
the
got
time and
it.
how are we going to get to peace.
So
So,
I wanna read to you. I wanna read to you some
okay.
Barasulam quote, which just fits into this beautifully. I put it here quickly on a Google Doc. It's two paragraphs. Can you see it? You can't see it. Now you can see it.
Yeah, we see
Two
it.
paragraphs. Check this out. So patterns, right? So here's what this is for those who never heard the name Bala Sulam. This is the preeminent Kabbalist of the previous century. So he writes this: there is none that does not obey the iron law of gradual evolution resulting from the collision of these two forces with one another. One, a positive force meaning constructive, and two, a negative force meaning destructive. So, I mean, short paragraph, but already he tells you everything in reality, everything that exists in reality ultimately is the evolution of this interplay between opposite forces, positive and negative. They create and complement the entire reality in general and in particular. So it's in your cells, it's in the atom, and it's also in societies, between nations, whatever you want. How they create and complement the entire reality from level to level through their harsh and perpetual war with one another. This is the at the essence of reality, at the foundation of everything that appears to our eyes is this perpetual war with between two forces. As we have said above, well, this is related to, it's coming from a longer text, so that's going to be take a long time to put it into context. But as we have said above, the negative force appears at the end of every political phase. This is part of an analysis where he shows that even how humanity changes through different regimes when we move from dictatorship to democracy, and then there's a struggle between socialism and communism and capitalism, all of that. The all of those are those different formations of human societies. They're also part of this evolution of the two forces, elevating it to a better state. Thus, the phases follow one another until they reach their ultimate perfection. That's the whole point. That's the whole goal. What we're experiencing now within time and space, this perpetual war, and look at history. Look at all of evolution. All of it is a war between two forces. Look at human history. It's war, 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 a little bit of balance. War, 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 a little bit of balance. That's basically what all of human history looks like. But all of this process, which we experience within time and space, ultimately, that actually is a program that leads to a consciousness of perfection. It builds new, timeless, above time and space, that is, vessels, emotional vessels that can hold what you, as you said, you mentioned before, that can hold the light. And the light means ultimate perfection between the opposites, the positive and negative, when that becomes one, when there's just oneness. We can't
Okay, so
perceive
was
oneness without going through
perpetual
this whole
war.
process. Yeah.
Wait, what?
We can't get to the point where we perceive perfection, where we perceive oneness, where we comprehend and digest what it means and feels to be one without going through this interplay between uh, light and darkness, positive and
Let's say even
negative, plus and
okay.
minus.
So let's say to know what is this love that we need? What is this peace that we need? Because if so without going through, so the purpose of this perpetual war is to develop in us a desire, a need, a reason for. If you are sitting on the floor playing with Legos, is your father going to give you the keys to the car? No. Once you get up off the floor and learn how to put on your pants and make your bed and clean the dishes, then, son, here's the keys. Enjoy. But if you're laying on the ground at 5 years old, he's not going to give you the keys to the car. So but we still, and I don't know if we'll be able to do it right now. So there has to be this perpetual war in order to develop in us a need for this love, because otherwise we don't know what this love is. Otherwise, we don't have a need for this love. Otherwise, I'm fine being an animal. I'm fine. Just give
Right.
me steak and give me a warm bed, and that's enough. But no, I need eternality. I need something everlasting. I need some true love. I need truth. Okay, so I have to have how do you develop a need for that? Through this process that Bala Salam is talking about, right? But Asaf, do we have to go through a nuclear war in order to get to it? Do we have to go through, uh, what these guys from NATO were talking about? Do we have to go through an absolute,
Hmm.
I mean, how many people did Stalin kill? 100 million. So fine, it moved for the left, and it'll move to the right. But how many hundreds of millions of people need, or
Right.
billions of people need to die?
Right.
And is that what needs to happen in order for us to to get to this true love?
So this is where this is the most important piece of this Kabbalistic prism on reality. That yes, the war needs to happen. Yes, the tension between plus and
Thank
minus.
you, ladies and gentlemen. Good night. The war needs to happen.
But where it happens, how it happens, that can totally be influenced for the better. Instead of this process, this harsh perpetual war between plus and minus, between happening in a very material, long-winding, full of suffering kind of way, we can take the war into our heart, into our minds and hearts, and we, human beings, have the capacity to incorporate the left and the right, or the plus and the minus. We can go through this pendulum, this interplay, the swing, emotionally, consciously, and mentally, if you will, spiritually. That's the a better, more accurate term. Instead of having this war between the forces playing out between our armies and our countries and our on our territories, that does not have to manifest like that. The tension needs to occur in order for new levels of consciousness to arise, but this process can happen inside our hearts. And that's the whole difference
Very
between.
hard. It's very hard to manage when these things are erupting inside.
Yeah,
It's
that
it's
that's an important thing to mention. It's not like,
because instead of an entire world war happening, it's going to happen inside of me. So where am I going to get the forces to be able to manage such forces inside of myself?
right, but when you but that's the difference. That's the whole difference between quantity and quality. For something to emerge from the physical level of evolution, let's say, you need a lot of time, and you need a lot of power, and you need a lot of bloodshed and suffering, and for something to. But if you solve it on a deeper level, on a higher level, you can do it with much less quantity. So this is similar to I don't know, take children and just put them in a playground and let them be in conflict until they find a way to get along. That can take a long time and a lot of pain. But if you teach them what they need to aspire to, and you show them some sort of an example, and they begin to internally understand this process that happens inside of them and between them, then they'll get there much faster. So it's not like you need to put a whole world war into your heart. You do, but when you do that spiritually, you have you do it in a qualitative way. So you don't need all of this, all of the heaviness and extension of time that we are familiar with from this realm of time and space. The spirituality doesn't need time. It doesn't need space. So, well, I see this is difficult to explain, but we can come up with maybe with some better examples. I'll think about it for next time.
We want to
You have
think
a wrap
about
up
how,
plan here because we're
well, not really, but we want to think about our method. While we do have friends who are in the military, and we have friends who are recyclers, and friends in finance and friends in art, we're not talking about the material level. Our work as Kabbalists is to engage internally. When we are
Mhm.
working towards a better world, the place that the Kabbalist does it is internally, and that we're speaking to all of you who are with us here to find these forces inside of yourself. Find these. Bala Salam talked about that perpetual war. Feel what's happening inside of you as you go through the day, and not just run away from the feelings, but exist at a level um, above those feelings, and allow them to generate forces inside of you. And think about all of the other people around the world, all of your other friends who are here together from week to week, who are all wanting to balance these opposing forces, balance these inevitable, these Malchut and Bina forces from before time. They're not going to go away, but how can we use those? How can we use this reality to, as a mechanism to launch us into a new perception, a perception of peace, a perception of love, a perception of goodness for everyone? Um, Chris, we're hoping everything is well with you. Everybody, we do read all of the messages in the chat. We're so happy that you're all here with us, and we will be back, hopefully, in a more peaceful world next week, Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern. Uh, we'll see you there.
Ultimately, things will be great. The question is just how bad it has to be before it becomes great. And that is up to us. That is what we can change. Ultimately, from a Kabbalistic perspective, that is what free choice is all about. We can't choose who we are. We can't choose what we are. We didn't create all of reality. We didn't create the final state of reality. We're beings in it. We can't choose any of that. But we can definitely choose how we experience it, how we go through it, how fast we pull the future into our present or pull
There you
ourselves
go.
into the future. So we managed to use that line somehow. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Seth. It
Bye,
was
everyone.
great jamming with you today. Um, yeah, you got a song for us?
I do, and it's not playing.
From this nightmare we've been
Ooh, it's
facing,
playing, but the quality is not great.
Tell me how gone
I mean,
overcome.
Sure.
try to. You
You know that Big
sharing?
Bargain detergent jug is 80%.
Oh, that's a
Mm.
nice commercial for detergent.
Okay, guys. Well, I think we'll go without a song then.
um, I'll.
Do you have another option?
Yeah, we can play the
How
intro.
anticlimactic.
Thank you, everybody. It's great to see all the love in the chat. Um, and if if the world is still here next week, I think we will be here too.
We'll see you there.
So see you then.
From this nightmare we've been facing, wake up. Tell me how gone overcome. The hatred and separation. Wake up. Come with love. Tell me what is happening with our nation? Wake up. See that we can get it right. You got a sticky situation. Wake up. Tell me now that it's love. We got to find a new way to love. Coming now together. We've been trying to fix our way.